Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on using technology to recruit, train, and keep volunteers in the loop. This is Carol Scott with the National Ombudsman Resource Center, and we want to welcome you. To this webinar. Some housekeeping details. Zoom's toolbox is in the bottom of your screen. Move your cursor to the bottom and you'll see several icons. If you have a question, please use the Q&A icon, and there is also a chat icon, for chatting. Please be sure to use change it to 2 so that everyone can see what you are chatting about. And feel free, if somebody says something and you want to comment on it, you are more than welcome to do that. If you're having audio issues, you can click on the microphone icon and switch to your telephone. And following this webinar, you will be directed to a short evaluation survey. Please take a couple of minutes to complete the survey so that we can learn how to improve our educational webinars. Today's speakers are Mitzi McFatridge. She is the Executive Director of Kansas Advocates for Better Care. Mitzi has been named this year's recipient of the Lawrence Douglas County League of Women Voters annual. Everybody mute your phone. Open and Accessible Government Award. She works with such groups as the Douglas County Coalition on Aging and the Cow Valley Owl. She helps coordinate the annual legislative forum on senior issues, provides legislative progress reports, and assists seniors in participating in the government process. Following Mitzi will be Greg Shelley. He's the managing local ombudsman of the Harris County Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program in Houston, Texas. He joined the Ombudsman program as a volunteer in January of 2010 and accepted a position of volunteer coordinator and staff ombudsman in June of that year. He has created and maintained the local program's social media accounts and moved the program towards significant reliance upon digital options for recruitment and communications. Our next speaker will be Betsy McAllister. She currently works as the Florida Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program as the state training administrator. She coordinates all training and educational activities for the Ombudsman program, research, plan, develop, and edit curricula and training materials to provide for statutorily required training for volunteers and staff members. Our final speaker is Teresa Holt. She's closing in on 5 years as the Alaska State Ombudsman. She is the second vice president of the National Association of State Ombudsman Programs, NASOP. She works with new state ombudsmen and their mentors. So we're so glad to have all of them. I want to just mention that we're not talking about less FaceTime. We're talking about how to use technology as a positive addition to reaching new people and staying in contact on a more consistent basis. I'm going to start with a couple of polling questions. So if you would respond to this first one, do you have a Facebook account for your Ombudsman program? Yes or no? I'll tell you that this is kind of where this idea of having this webinar came from as I looked around the country at websites and Facebook accounts. So, okay, looks like about 71% of you are saying you do not have a Facebook account for your program. Oh, I guess I could share those with people. That would be good. And about almost 30% say that they do. So our next poll is on Twitter. Do you have a Twitter account for your Ombudsman program? I'm not at all surprised with this answer. Okay, we're going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 89% say they do not have a Twitter account, and 11% of you say that you do. Okay. And our next poll is, do you have control over the content of your program's website? This is always a tough one if you're inside of another agency that controls things. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Looks like 67% of you do not have control over the content, with only 33% of you having control. That's interesting. And our final poll is on social media. Do you currently use social media to recruit and/or retain volunteers? Okay. Still getting a few in. We'll call that good. 68% of you say no, and 32% of you say yes. So hopefully some of the tips and ideas that you'll hear today will help inform you on whether you want to begin using social media, how you might go about getting more control over the content of the website, how to use Twitter in what you're doing, and Facebook. So thank you for participating in the poll. And at this point, I'm going to turn things over to Mitzi.
Thanks, Carol. I appreciate that. And I'm going to rely on you to transition my slides. So next.
Okay, I will do that. And Katie, if you could take over, that would be awesome.
Thanks. So Kansas Advocates for Better Care is a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization. So we're not authorized by any state or federal government legislation like the Ombudsman program is, but we work a lot with Ombudsman programs, and we also do our part to help recruit volunteer Ombudsman in our state. We advocate with and for older adults and people with disabilities for better long-term care, whether they're at home or in facility settings. And we have about 600 members and volunteer advocates across Kansas. So social media is a terrific low-cost way for us to stay in touch with them. Because we're a small staff of 3 with a part-time public policy person, and we have a small budget. So using communication tools that allow us to talk more and broadly with people at low cost has been a tremendous resource for us. We've had the opportunity to, we're in Lawrence, Kansas, and the University of Kansas is here, and we've had the opportunity to utilize volunteers from both high school and college and post graduate programs in our program, and they have really upped our game in a wonderful way for social media and the work that we're doing on social media. So if you feel like you might not be an expert in social media and you'd like somebody who has more expertise, those are tremendous places to turn to get people who are sort of native users, as those instead of those of us who have had to figure it out as we go along. Next slide. So social media use is continuing to grow, and it's growing in every demographic. And these two charts will tell you that among American adults who are on social networking sites, of those who are on social networking sites, what ages that is really concentrated in. So you'll see the 18 to 29-year-olds in the graph that's upward trending. You'll see that just shy of about 90% of 18 to 29-year-olds are active on social networking sites. But you'll also see that there's a pretty good and growing percentage of people 65 and older, and good use amongst those who are 50 to 64. And presumably, both of those age groups are age groups that you'd be interested in recruiting volunteer ombudsmen from that demographic. The other thing that I find really useful in terms of deciding where we're going to utilize and put our resources it's good to know that Facebook, the people that are really engaged with Facebook are women, and in that adult age category of 18 to 29. That for Twitter, that's adults ages 18 to 29, African Americans, and urban residents. So if you're in an urban area, great to know that about Twitter. That Pinterest also is a platform that you might utilize to engage women who are under 50 and are white and have some college education. And then with Instagram, adults ages 18 to 29, African Americans, Latinos, women, urban residents. And Tumblr ages 18 to 29. Next slide. So you might want to target which platform you invest in terms of learning about and the resources that you use from your organization based upon which of those demographics you're most interested in reaching. Because one of the things that I've found is that it sounds like online, low cost, you can post things quickly. It seems like maybe you could keep up with all of those platforms. I can tell you we cannot, with a small staff, do that effectively. So we've really concentrated our efforts in Facebook and, to a lesser degree, Twitter and YouTube. And this slide will show you, again, a little more information in terms of the social networks by age distribution. And here, the top graphs talk about Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat. Both Instagram and Snapchat are used by primarily a younger demographic. And then if the icons are not familiar to you in the bottom graph, there's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and then LinkedIn, which is a platform that is used oftentimes by professionals trying to connect, whether that's in business or nonprofits. Next slide. And people are increasingly spending time on social media platforms. So meeting the people that you're trying to recruit where they are spending time is a great intersection. And so again, this will give you a little bit of information about the social landscape and who's using what and how they're using it. So it won't come as a surprise to any of you on Facebook that 3/4 of Facebook users and half of Instagram users are using the site daily and sometimes many times a day. Next slide. We're going to start talking a little bit more about Facebook, and Facebook's goal is to connect people. And clearly that's one of the things that you want to do as you reach out to volunteers and as you try to recruit new volunteers. And Facebook is by far the most used platform when we talk about social media. It's the largest media site in the world. Over 80% of online adults are users on Facebook, and their interface features individual user profiles. So if you're a person on Facebook, then you're going to have a profile, and you're also going to have a news feed, so you can decide which other individuals or organizations that you want to see their information in your news feed. And I'll tell you, it's not quite as simple as that, because Facebook has algorithms that they use about which things come up. And if you're a person that's connected to hundreds of people and organizations, then when the information that you are wanting others to see won't necessarily come up all the time every day in their news feed. Their user base in Facebook has more age diversity and a higher average age than any of the other social media platforms, and is used again more by women than by men. It's great for marketing to a general consumer demographic. And in addition, they have an opportunity for you to boost, which is a paid option, to target users that are outside of your particular followers. If you have a Facebook page and you have followers, and if you want to reach beyond your followers, there is the opportunity to boost by paying for some very targeted demographic outreach. Next slide. So if Facebook is new to you and you don't know how to go about setting up a Facebook account, this slide and some of the others will give you kind of the 411 of how to do that. I'm not going to spend any time on this particular slide, but it'll be in the slides if you want to refer back to it. Next slide. So if you want to make a post on Facebook, which is how you put content up on Facebook, then you want to go to your page or a friend's page or a group page, and you want to tap on the post box and put in there whatever it is that you want to share, whether that's a comment, whether that's a photo, whether that's something else. And so that's how content comes up on Facebook. And again, the kind of content that is most often going to come to the top in terms of what Facebook promotes in their algorithm are going to be things that have photographs and videos. Next slide. So if you're looking to make an engaging post, one that people will pay attention to, I can't say enough, photos and videos, charts and graphs, things that are colorful. Those are things that are going to catch people's eye as they are scrolling through their feed, and maybe will stop to look at and take some action or repost or share. And so it's really important that when you think about making a post to recruit or engage volunteers, that you're using something that's colorful. And again, because Facebook is connecting, it is about emotional content often. So interesting stories, heartfelt stories, things that are concerning, alarming data, breaking news, things that are coming up repeatedly, trending stories. Those are the kinds of things that people are going to pay more attention to. So as you are making engaging posts, think about that and think about what it is that you want people to hear and know about you and the issue that you care about. And also, if there's something you want them to do, what is it that you want them to do? So you'll see that our post is about antipsychotic drug use, and it's one of those alarming facts. And then you'll see that the other post, iPhone for Seniors, is something that is more of a heartfelt story, and in fact is something that was picked up and began trending very quickly. And trending simply, it went viral. And what that means is simply that it began to spread quickly and widely on the internet through social media. Next slide. So we try to change it up on our feeds and what we post. And so we try to curate content about our issue. We also try to inform people about poor quality care issues like antipsychotic drug use. And we also try to offset that with something more empowering and cheerful and hopeful and encouraging. And I think that's really important because a lot of times we find ourselves dealing with really difficult subjects, and not allowing our posts to always be on the serious side, I think is important in terms of engaging others. Next slide. So if you're an organization as opposed to an individual, if you're an individual, you're going to have a profile on Facebook. If you're an organization, you're going to have a page or a business, or if you're a public figure, then you're going to have a page that you can use to share stories and connect people, like people's profiles. The pages can be customized with stories, events, and other things. People who like or follow our page can get updates on their news feed. So if you want to create a page and you haven't yet, this will tell you a little bit more about how to do that. Next slide. Facebook does some things, offers some tools for organizations that can be helpful, especially if you want to do information sharing with a group of people, again, like volunteer ombudsman or resident councils or other groups of people. And groups can be public or closed or secret on Facebook. And which of those you choose results in who can see the information. So if it's a public group, anybody could search for it and find it that's on Facebook. If it's a closed group, people might be able to see that the group exists, but they won't necessarily be able to see the content based upon how you set your privacy settings. And if it's a secret group, they won't be able to search for and find the information. So that might be more appropriate if you are utilizing the information to share not specific information that should be encrypted or protected in some way about individual residents, but more generally about looking for information or sharing information about challenges that residents might be dealing with. And every group has an administrator, and you can also assign others to be moderators who control who's able to post and what gets posted. And that can be really important in terms of having some control over the content and who's able to post content to a group on Facebook. And again, it can be really helpful for engaging existing volunteers or an advocate network and for content that you don't necessarily want everybody to see. Next slide. Facebook also allows you to notice others about events, and the events could be birthday of a volunteer ombudsman, so you could use it for volunteer recognition. It could be for a recruitment training opportunity and getting information out about a recruitment training opportunity. It could be for some special thing that you're doing with residents. You could use it for any kind of event that you want to. And again, when you create an event, you can control who sees or joins the event and gets updates about the events, or you can let it be public so that anybody can see it. Events are one of those things that also can be boosted on Facebook. So every year when we do our once-a-year charity event called Stand By Me, we do boosts on Facebook of that event. And we do the boost. You can choose how much money you want to spend and what area geographically you want the boost to go to. And you can also choose among certain demographic factors. So if you're looking for women of a certain age, men of a certain age, people in a particular geographic area, people who are connected to a particular topic or issue, those are all things that you can choose when you select your boost. And typically, if we're going to boost an event, we spend someplace between $25 and $100 to do that. And in fact, what we might do is target the same area and demographic and do sequential boosts over weeks or days in order to assure that it's something that comes up for people to see more than once. So it can be a really cost-effective way for you to be able to get more people besides those who are following you to see something. And again, for volunteer recruitment or events, that can be really helpful. Next slide. And this just tells you how to create a public event on your Facebook page. So and it will also give you a little indication, and you can get information back. And I'll talk a little bit more about this at the end in terms of analytics. But you can see on the right side of the screen that you can tell how many people went, how many people were interested, that 1,700 people were reached in the last 7 days with a particular post, that there were 45 responses, that 18 people bought tickets to go, and maybe they didn't actually buy tickets. That's what they say in terms of an RSVP on Facebook. So it might just be you've invited these people to training, and 18 people took you up on saying, yes, they'll be at that training. Next slide. So another social media platform that we use in a more limited way than Facebook is Twitter. And Twitter only allows for 280 characters for each of the posts. It used to be 144. They raised it to 280 maybe a year or two ago. And people that are on Twitter and using Twitter are more likely to be following organizations or news sites. They might also be following groups or celebrities, rather than maintaining a personal network of people as they might on Facebook. And they're typically connecting around topics or events or content. Excuse me. You'll see the pound sign off to the side, also known as a hashtag. And hashtags are really important for getting your particular content noticed by people outside of those who are following you. Live tweeting events is another thing that can be helpful if we use it for advocacy. So if we're in a hearing, as we were on written informed consent for older adults and antipsychotic drugs, we might be live tweeting from the legislative hearing about what particular legislators are saying, about what others who are testifying are saying. So live tweeting can be something that's good to be doing if you're doing a training and you want others to see that you're doing the training, and what are some of the topics that are being covered and what are some of the people who are volunteering saying. Again, it's just a way to get people to be more aware of what you're doing and in a way that might engage them. Twitter has a higher percentage of men, people of color, urban users than other social media sites. So if you're in a rural area, it might not be your best choice, but if you're in an urban area, it might be the choice for you. Next slide. And this will just tell you how to create a Twitter account if you are interested in doing that. So next slide. And some of the same things go for Twitter posts. Obviously, on all social media, pictures are important. Pictures that are engaging, conversation that's engaging, those are all important for getting your post noticed. But some other things that might get your post seen by more people is the use of hashtags that reference the same topic. So at the end of last year, we were working on a dementia state plan, and we wanted to get people's attention focused on dementia. And there was a hashtag, defeating dementia. And so we used that hashtag in the post that we created on the left, the picture and post that's on the left. And it would then ensure that everybody who saw Kim Wood's yoga posting and Maria Shriver's posting on World Dementia would also see our posting. So that doesn't cost us anything except the time to create the post and a little research to find out what topics to hashtag to. Next slide. Another feature that Twitter has is that you can tag others. So lots of people might be watching what Samuel Jackson has to say, or what Maria Shriver has to say, or what some other influencer has to say. And by tagging them at Samuel Jackson and using the hashtag End Alzheimer's again, we may assure that those who are looking at those kinds of issues or following Samuel Jackson will be seeing what it is that we post. And on Twitter, some of the things that you'll see are the ability to make a comment, the little icon. You click on that in order, or tap on that in order to make your comment. You can retweet it, send it out again, something that you've already seen. You can say, I like it with the heart, or you can directly message a person or an organization with the envelope. Next slide. And I should say, one of the things I didn't say on the last slide is that 2 years ago, HRC, Human Rights Watch, which is an international human rights organization, came to Kansas to talk about their newly released study called They Want Docile, again, on antipsychotic drug use. And during the release of their report, they did lots and lots of social media around the report. And because the report included information about Kansas, we piggybacked onto theirs. And the day that we had a hearing on antipsychotic drug use in Kansas, by piggybacking onto their posts, 1,500 people saw what we were sharing that day instead of our kind of more typical range of 500 to 900 people. So it really gave us a boost on that particular day. So this is Instagram, and it is a social networking site that's based primarily on sharing images, whether those are photographs or videos. And like Facebook, you have an individual page that you can post your own photos and a feed that you can scroll through to see what other people are doing and the people that you are following. Again, using hashtags is important to get your content noticed outside of your followers. And while the demographics are younger, new statistics from the Pew Charitable Trust show that older generations are starting to embrace this app a little bit more. And did I get easier to hear, I hope, just now? And so what I've heard over and over is that whatever younger generations are using for social media platform, a certain number of older adults are also going to be using, because they are using these social media platforms as a means to stay connected to younger family members. So if you're looking for intergenerational kinds of engagements and you are hoping to engage more young people as well as their circle of family, then Instagram might be one of the things that you want to consider utilizing more. And next slide. One of the things that you'll find with Instagram is that you'll have a very engaged, active network of passionate people who are ready to interact and boost your posts in terms of Instagram users. Next slide. Like Twitter, Instagram allows you to post and search by topics, again, through use of hashtags. And this was, I thought, a particularly compelling post. It's not one of ours, but what they did was post a beautiful picture of this older woman, pair it with a compelling story, include several hashtags, and that allowed it to be found and seen and shared by a lot more people. And essentially, I would say that's true for all social media platforms, those things, including a great photo, having a compelling story, tagging things that are seen by more people. Those are all basic components of social media use. Next slide. So this will just tell you a little bit about what's required in order to use social media. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram can be accessed through their websites or through mobile apps. In order to access them, you have to have internet access through your computer or tablet or cell phone, or you have to have a data plan in the instance of your cell phone. to or perhaps tablet in order to access the sites or the applications. And this will tell you where you can access the websites, and it also will give you some idea of if you're an iPhone user, you're going to go to the App Store. If you're an Android user, you're going to go to the Play Store in order to find these applications. Next slide. And this is a little bit about the analytics that I wanted to mention to you. We worked last year with a social media consultant, specifically around advocacy work that we were trying to do and to engage more people and volunteers in the advocacy work that we are doing with state and federal policymakers. And we wanted to know who was reacting to what we were posting. And more importantly, we wanted to know who was actually acting on what we were posting. So if we were asking them to take an action to contact their legislator or to sign a particular petition or something like that, we wanted to know how many people were reached and then how many people actually took some action, as well as those who shared it on with their network by reposting or retweeting. And so analytics are available in all of the social media platforms and can be really helpful for you to evaluate what kind of return on investment of your time and resources that you're getting, and whether or not people are finding what you post compelling enough to act on. And sometimes it's a learning curve. It was for us. Ours has really grown over time. And so the analytics are helpful in giving you a baseline of where you're starting and to see over time, not just post by post, but over time, if you're having a greater impact and engaging more people. And I think that's particularly important to know if you're a small organization and you have limited time and resources, which all of us do. You know, what's really worth your while and what's really generating a response if you're trying to recruit volunteers or get them to trainings or get them to take some action or participate in some activity. I think that's really helpful information to have. And as Carol said right out of the box, this isn't about replacing face-to-face and human contact. It is simply another tool for communication. So next slide. That's our presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions however that works best. So you have my contact information, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Carol.
Great. Thank you so much, Mitzi. You've given us a ton of information. We're putting the slides in the chat so you can download them at any point. And if you're wondering why we keep repeating them, it's because if people join, then they can't see the previous chat. So at this point, I want to turn things over to Greg. Greg, you're muted. I will unmute you. There you go.
All right, that's better, right?
Yes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Can you see my screen pretty well?
Yes, perfect.
All right. Well, Mitzi did a great job of that overview with social media. I'll tell you in pretty reasonable brevity here some of the things that we've done on the local scale. And I think when I first started doing it just about, 9.5 years ago, kind of seemed overwhelming to think about even getting a couple of these things going. But kind of took it as a philosophy of just a little bit each week here and there when I had time. And now 9 years later, some of these accounts have pretty good followings and they make for really good community outreach, not just recruitment, but also outreach and consultation sources. But the first things we started out with was some of the basics, the Facebook page and the Twitter account. Both of those had pretty good activity. And one of the things that you can do to limit how much time you spend with them is there's a way to link one to the other. So if you post something on Facebook, that will automatically go out in your Twitter account as well. That's helpful. There's also a variety of other ways to use multiple social media accounts and post once via something like Hootsuite, for instance. That's what I use. And it lets me post to 5 different social media accounts with a single post and also schedule them. And that's all free. So our Facebook page has gotten up to a little over 200 followers, and the Twitter account has taken off pretty good and is now somewhere over 1,200 followers, I believe. And the trick to Twitter, of course, is that you can control pretty much who you follow. And when you're looking for news that's related to long-term care or healthcare in general, it's easy to control who you're following, and so you don't get out in the weeds with celebrity news and all that stuff that you hear about. Also nice in both of those platforms is the ability to mute and unfollow and block people as necessary. YouTube, actually not so much for outreach necessarily, but a great way to keep information such as continuing education videos, training videos, and also anything related to long-term care up there. And we use it a lot for inter-program education opportunities for our existing volunteers, and sometimes utilize it for the folks that are going through the training course as well. Some of the things we've had for a while, we've had LinkedIn and Pinterest for quite some time, completely different platforms, but becoming more and more useful. LinkedIn is something I regularly post to, and it has had an impact in the composition of our volunteer force, and I'll talk about that a little bit here later. I've noticed lately Instagram, and we haven't been super busy on that, but I've seen a lot of things trending that way. I've seen more nonprofits and especially folks in the arts going that direction and not even bothering with Twitter these days. So it is becoming a much more popular platform as well. We also take advantage of all the possibilities we have for free postings. The number one biggest source for us comes from Volunteer Match and Volunteer Houston combined here. We get a whole lot of referrals from them. I would say next to that, it's community outreach from going out and doing community education in person, and then a little bit from word of mouth. And those are pretty much the 3 dominant sources. Nonetheless, it's important to have as big of a web presence as you possibly can. And when you have those free postings, it's nice to be able to update them on a quarterly basis if you have the time, but just having more information out there that people can access when they do a search related to nursing homes or long-term care or anything, it makes the likelihood of you being discovered quicker. We have a website here that's housed within CISIC School of Nursing. I don't have a whole lot of control over it other than to ask them to edit things. And I think some of you are probably facing a little bit of that lack of freedom as well, depending on how you're housed. And I remember about I guess it was about 9.5 years ago now, just the mention of creating a social media account around our AAA and the university was almost like sending shockwaves through everybody. Everybody was really alarmed about it. So we did it little pieces at a time, and eventually got more and more freedom and a little more following as well. So initially, I think originally some of the things that weren't working, we were trying to do things that worked really well for us, not so much finding what volunteers wanted. That's why the different platforms and the different options for posting are a really good source of volunteers. And we had tried in the past fairly expensive postcard mail outs to reach to the community. That wasn't working, and of course it wasn't as targeted as what you can do with some of the social media stuff now. Word of mouth by itself wasn't necessarily carrying it, so we started doing a whole lot more, taking advantage of community education, whether it's speeches or regular presentations to different community groups. That's helped a lot. And the student groups turned out to be, I think students in general, they already have pretty busy lives. Many of them are also working. And while well-intentioned, very often kind of overcommit. And once they get into the training program, they don't tend to be our general best category of folks who have high return on investment. So some of the things that's changed over the time that we've been doing predominantly everything from a digital format is we do have a much higher increase in career professionals and folks that are working. And about 2/3 of our certified ombudsmen, currently we have 62 active certified ombudsmen, and just about 2/3 of them are still working full-time. Most of those are full-time, some part-time, but we don't have as many retirees as we had in the past. But we are seeing a fair percentage of them in our new classes as they come in. Of course, in my experience, the folks who are retired and have the time on their hand tend to be able to live up to a bigger commitment and stay longer, and that's also helpful. So been thinking more recently about ways to reach that group, and it is in the social media realm as well. And I'll touch base on that in the next slide. But getting away from having to do individual mailings, like when I first came on in 2010, we had, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 volunteers that still had no email, and it made it very difficult for efficient communication because we'd have to take the time to, of course, put that communication in mail for those folks. We're currently, we have no one that doesn't have an email, and that's just kind of changing times. But that doesn't mean everybody's really efficient at using it, but it is making us more efficient in being able to communicate both educational opportunities and get them involved in advocacy opportunities on a more systems level. They've gotten fairly more interested in networking. So when we do our quarterly CEs, we're seeing 50% plus of that 62 show up to those on a regular basis. And we've also moved towards, because we've had pretty good success with recruitment over the years, folks working in teams. So we'll assign 2 volunteers to some of the larger, heavy Medicaid nursing homes, and that seems to work well for the right people in the right place. Some of the things we've been thinking about this year, as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, and if we have funds, looking for digital formats to advertise on. And as Mitzi had mentioned, Facebook is got lots of ways to target different folks for pretty affordable rates compared to something like our main newspaper here in Houston, which is the Houston Chronicle. They can do all sorts of targeted advertising, but of course, the more specific you get on that network, the much more expensive it becomes. One of the things I was thinking more recently, after being having been afraid to be part of Nextdoor and now being on it in my new neighborhood, realizing that the folks that are on Nextdoor, there's many of them that seem to be from an older demographic and might not be using any of the other types of social media. And so the extra nice thing is you can target specific neighborhoods. And if you're a large program like us, that's important because we have parts of town that we've historically had very difficult time getting volunteers from. That, I don't even have a question slide, so I just lost y'all there. I'll take you back to that. But that's all I've got. If you have any questions.
Greg, thank you. There are currently no questions in the Q&A and nobody's chatting. So I guess everybody's just glued to their computer and they can't move anymore. Then it
Well, hopefully.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. They have my contact information on there, and I'd always be happy to help folks get set up and partner. And that's the other nice thing is most programs across country have many of these social media things, so it's easy to connect with other programs.
Great. Well, thank you. Gonna turn the program over to Betsy.
Trying to unmute myself and get that. Okay, can you see my screen?
Can see your screen and I can hear you.
My name is Betsy McAllister, and I'm the state trainer for the Florida Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. I'll be going over our online certification training modules and our monthly Ombudsman Corner webinars, along with our training tracker. I put together some screenshots to give you a quick overview on how we do our online training and live webinars and some of the technology we use. Ombudsman.myflorida.com is our website. This is where we access our Google training sites. On our homepage, there's a link to enter the training site where our online modules, continuing education, Ombudsman corners, and resources are. Clicking on the training tab will allow you to access the training portal. This is our Google site portal. This is where the certification training and the monthly Ombudsman corners are. We'll first go over the certification training. This can be accessed through here by clicking on certification training link. We have 8 online modules. On the top left, there's a navigation tool. You can click on the modules there or the orange links, which have a brief description of each module. Module 1 provides basic information about the purpose, history, and the unique aspects of Florida's long-term care Ombudsman program. So I'm going to click on Module 1, and this will take us to this is Articulate Storyline 2. It's our e-learning module. This is the introduction module. Our State Ombudsman, Michael Milligan, has a brief video welcoming staff and the volunteers to the program. Then we go into various videos in the history of the Ombudsman program. All 8 of the modules have this look with a table of content on the left side. It's very easy to navigate. It's extremely user-friendly for our elder Ombudsman. After completing each module online, we have a course completion form embedded in there, so they enter their name and they hit submit. That comes to the state trainer on the back end and has a timestamp date and name for tracking purposes. In the final module 8, there's a brief quiz and a survey. After completing the online modules, then the volunteer will have classroom training and field training at the local level. But the surveys in there they're really, really good because they give us a lot of information for developing other courses and developing other continuing education. People can tell us their likes, their dislikes. Now we're going to go back to the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program training portal, again, to show the monthly Ombudsman corners. This is a monthly webinar provided to staff and volunteers in order to keep up with the Florida statute of 10 hours of continuing education per year. When we click on the link, the Department of Health Antibiotic Stewardship link, it'll take you to the YouTube video. This is kind of the format. This is our state ombudsman and our Department of Health subject matter expert. Sometimes we'll just have a casual coffee type chat webinar where the webinar will look like this for the whole 1 hour. This will allow the volunteers and staff to instant message questions, which we answer either throughout the presentation or we'll do those at the end. And then this is what it looks like if they want to, project a PowerPoint on there. The subject matter and the state ombudsman will be over on the left. And this is a Skype business. Then we publish it to our website. We upload it into a YouTube video. So we archive all of our continuing education. So if they don't watch it live, they can watch the recorded version. Another type of training tool we use is Prezi, whether that is for PowerPoint type of presentations or we use it for videos, for training, ombudsman orientation, or recruitment videos. It doesn't cost much and it has some unique benefits and features available. Sometimes you have to tone down the animations or at least know your audience and alter the presentations to them if you're using Prezi, because it has a lot of interactive faces. Now I'm going to show you our database where we developed our own learning management system, our own LMS system. This is in our OMIS database. We have developed our own in-house training tracker, originally building it in Access, the software Access, to demo it and just the different features we needed and wanted to show our IT department. And then our IT department built it into our current database, which is our case management and assessment, where we put everything in the long-term care ombudsman program. You'll see the training tab. When you click on that, it'll go to a list of all the approved training available. This is that page. This is the class page. It has class name, class description, active hours, approved date, ombudsman in class. The state trainer and the data analyst are the only two who can add classes to this list. So we don't let them do that at the local level. We're just trying to keep it all routine so we don't have double the amount of classes in there. When adding a new class, the state trainer enters the class name, a description, the hours, web link, as much information you can get in there, the contact person, the date it was approved. And then when you hit submit, it just basically takes you back to the class approval page. So this will take you back. On top of that, we're developing different training. This is in a beginning stage right now, so we don't have all the reports that we're running, but we are going to have self-populated reports that we can click at the bottom. There'll be a drop down of reports. Like I said, right now it's in the beginning stage. So right now there's a list of ombudsman by class. If you select the date range, you can sort by district, you can sort by a specific class name, and then you can run the report. Now, because it's in the beginning stage, I kind of just left a lot of information out because I didn't want to have to black out all the volunteers' names and so forth. But it'll give you the idea of what it's going to look like. This will populate the class name, the ombudsman name, and the class taken date, which will really help us when it comes time to reporting for NORS reporting. This basically concludes the Florida Long-Term Care Ombudsman training modules and the Ombudsman Corner overview. That's just a brief example of some of the various trainings we do using technology. You can also find us on Facebook at Florida Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. And like Greg, I didn't put my contact information on here, but they can get a hold of me. And I thank you for your time, and I think we're good here.
Great. Betsy, thank you so much. Very, very helpful information. I'm going to turn it over to Teresa Holt. Who is muted. Teresa, are you there? Yeah.
I muted it now. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay. So I am actually going to turn it over to Catherine Curry and Carrie to do a little talk about two things that we have done that have helped us. One is not posting to our Facebook page, but posting to other Facebook pages. And then the second is our success in boosting, and I can only say be careful what you boost for, because you might get more than you wanted. So, Catherine?
All right. So one of the things that we started doing probably about a year ago is trying to figure out how to use Facebook to reach as many potential volunteers as we can. So one of the things that I have been doing is posting recruitment bulletins on community Facebook pages. The downside to that, and maybe Greg or one of the other speakers can help us with it, is that I haven't figured out a way to do it on an organization level. So I have to do it as an individual using my personal Facebook page or my Facebook account. But what I do is I search, and you can just go to your home screen on Facebook, click on home across the top of your screen. On the left-hand side, you're going to have a bunch of options. Go down to explore and click on to groups. And then when you get into groups, you can search for groups that you want to post in. So in Alaska, we have this huge geographic area that we have to cover. So I look for individual communities that have their own Facebook pages. And then within that grouping, I look for groups that might possibly have members that would be a good demographic to choose from our volunteers. For instance, I often go to the community event pages. The bigger communities will have, usually the government office will have a page, and then there's a bunch of other community pages within that group. So I look for groups like helping those in need. So like we have a see a need, fill a need pages, those type things, because my theory on that is that folks with giving hearts would make really good volunteers. We've had a lot of success there. I look on any of those groups that are listing job opportunities or classified ads, or the whole purpose is to post community events, and we get on as many of those as possible. And then the downside to that is you have to join those pages, and some of these groups rather, some are closed and some are open. So if they're closed, you have to click join, and then an admin will get back to you and let you know if you're accepted into their group or not. So you often have to answer several test questions, like why do you want on our page, or do you live in this community? And when you say no, you have to explain what your interest is in the community. But so far, I've had nobody say no. I've always been accepted to each of the groups that I've tried to get into. And once you're approved, then you can just start posting away. I developed a recruitment bulletin that I save on my desktop, and so I post the bulletin along with a little header note at the top of each posting, and it's been pretty successful for us. We are currently sitting at right around 70 volunteers, and for us that's pretty good. We have, how many communities do we have facilities in? 28 or something like that, 28 communities across the state. So we had to find a way that we could reach as many people across the state as possible with the least amount of money, because otherwise a lot of our communities are only accessible by airplane. So we were kind of forced to look at other options, and this is what's been most successful for us. So Terry, did you want to talk about how we're boosting our Facebook posts?
Sure. As Catherine mentioned, our budget, so we don't have a lot of budget. It keeps getting smaller and smaller. So we literally have spent $20 boosting for the recruitment bulletin and $20 boosting for the event that we created to go along with it. So a total of $40 every quarter. The first time we did it, I don't even remember how many people it reached. We got so many, because we do the entire state, where we don't have specific, in other words, our office
Statewide.
is statewide. We don't have a community ombudsman. So anyway, so we did the whole thing. We got thousands of people who saw it. And then, so we had gazillion people that we had to fly to go train. So it cost actually us more money to do it that way, which was great. We are not complaining. But the next time we decided to tailor it more towards specific areas. Like if we needed volunteers in Sitka, or we needed volunteers more in Kenai, then we could specifically dwindle it down to where only those people were seeing it more often. So I highly recommend that when you boost it, think closely, strategically about where you put it. If you go everywhere, you're going to go everywhere. I mean, it really does work.
Well, and that brings a couple of other points too, that if you're strategically placing your boosting opportunities, look to where your staff are already traveling. So we try to marry that up. If our staff is going out to a certain community for regularly scheduled facility visits, I will target that community then for volunteers, so that while our ombudsman is in that community, they can do the field training portion of the volunteer training. So then we back up our classroom training to coincide with that travel date. So there's a lot of considerations. And then the other thing, what was the other point I wanted to make there? Oh, be prepared for, you have to be very proactive, because you're going to get a lot of obscure comments like interested. So then you got to reach out to them, and you got to kind of maneuver Facebook to be able to send them a private message because you don't want to do this all on the big platform. And then just engage in a conversation with each and every one of those people who have exhibited some sort of interest. And just be prepared that some of them aren't truly interested when it gets down to it. So I would say probably, 40%, maybe 50% of the people I talk to actually make it to a training. So, but it has really improved our recruitment efforts. When we started, well, I can just say about 6 years ago, we had a handful of volunteers. And now we have about 70. And so they're the ones that seem to have the time to get the visits done and are more ready to engage with the residents and do more resolution of issues as opposed to just doing friendly type visits. So I think that's about all we have, unless anyone has any questions.
This is perfect. We'll get to questions here in just a second, and we do have several people who have typed in a question under the Q&A, so thank you. I wanted to talk about a few of the resources that that NORC has. I'm just muting people. So one of the first places is on our website under support and then training. There is just a whole bunch of different types of training materials. And you can look on the page here and see where I've circled NORC conference calls, webinars. We have the webinars and the handouts for every one that we have done since 2009. So if you are wanting just to refresh yourself on a particular issue, or if you're wanting to use it as a training during a quarterly meeting with your current volunteers and staff, you can go back and look at any of those webinars, and absolutely free to use them in whatever way you can to help your volunteers. There's also, well, you can see here, there's just all kinds of information. The NORC curriculum is a complete series of trainings that could be used as your certification training, or it could be, you could use bits and pieces of it. We will be updating this in the next year or so. This contains 5 different modules, as you'll see here. It includes tests at the end of each module, and the state ombudsman in each state can send you the test scores for everyone that has taken the test. And that way you might learn about areas that might need some additional training. But this online curriculum includes things to read, videos, exercises to do. It's a very complete set of information that, like I said, could be used for your certification training. We do have a fairly, we're still calling it a new training center, although it's been around for over a year now. You can go to www.consumervoice.mrooms.net. This is an on-demand education platform for anyone that's interested in achieving quality long-term care, and it's available through your computer or mobile device. The Training Center allows you to delve into important topics through online courses. Courses are available for consumers, representatives of long-term care, ombudsman programs, advocates, and family members. At this point, the Training Center only houses continuing education materials that are also located on the NORC website, such as webinars, fact sheets, presentations, and more. Interactive and on-demand training for the revised NORS and NORC curriculum will be available in the near future. And when you scroll down, you'll find the PDF instructions for creating an account and enrolling in a course. And at the bottom of the home screen, you can find a list of all the available courses. And again, this comes with testing at the end of each of those. Also, under support on the NORC website, under support, program promotion, social media, there are examples of Facebook pages, Twitter accounts, and tips, and materials we've created that programs can use for free. There's a PowerPoint deck and infographic, and there's social media quick tips that you can use, although the information that Mitzi had today probably is a little bit more current, but there is a video presentation of delivering an effective message via traditional and social media PowerPoint presentation that's also in there, and it's also right here on this slide. A new thing that just came out in the last few months, if you haven't downloaded the NORC app on your phone, we are very excited about this. You can go to the Play Store or a Google Play or the Apple Store to download this. It gives you access to all kinds of things. It gives you access to consumer fact sheets, to the federal laws. If you're, excuse me, if you're sitting in an airport or at a restaurant and somebody says, oh, an ombudsman, I need one, but I don't live in the state, you could go out on this app and find the local ombudsman's contact information for all of the states. So this is a pretty cool thing. We'd love to have you use this, and then let us know what you think about it, because we're all pretty excited about being able to give you guys access to information while you're out in the field, and I think your volunteers would really appreciate that also. It's been mentioned several times, the whole idea of a Prezi. It's a little bit fancier than a simple webinar PowerPoint presentation. You know, takes you to the different buttons, and it's kind of engaging as you're watching it. You can have them with a video, with a voiceover, which is what we have here on nursing home discharge. You can listen to it, or you can get it without the voiceover and have the script if you wanted to give it live as a presentation. And then it includes a fact sheet that comes along with that. And then Zoom, which is what we're using today. And the pretty cool thing about using Zoom is you can see each other. And I think that one of the things, I have worked remotely for going on 5 years now. And the first 3 years I worked for an organization that did not use, we just used a phone service. And so we were talking to people on the phone. And while it was fun to, you know, be able to talk to people, it really, sometimes I found myself like going out to get the mail while I was on this teleconference, or I would go down and move my laundry from the washer to the dryer. Well, when you're on Zoom and everybody's, you know, you're looking at each other, kind of like the Brady Bunch, it's much more engaging, and you really do pay attention. The nice thing about Zoom is you can have lots and lots of people on, whether or not they use their camera all the time or just every once in a while. It's a great system to have. We had been using GoToMeeting, and that was also a great system. You could see each other. You could record conversations or trainings. I think when you're working remotely, whether it's with other staff or volunteers, being able to see each other face to face is just helps. You just don't feel as disconnected. So I really encourage you, if you're doing any kind of online training, that you try to get a system where you can see people live. So ending up here, probably not a surprise to all of you, but October is Residents' Rights Month, and hope that that you are beginning to reach out to your long-term care facilities and offering to do presentations, to talk with their resident or family councils. There are all kinds of information about the Residents' Rights Month events and materials that are available on the Consumer Voice website. So I want to pay particular attention to the Residents' Voice Challenge, where we encourage residents, either individually or in groups, to talk about or somehow using writing or artistic skills to show and to express how important it is to stand up for quality and how to have good care provided to them. So that deadline is coming up on September the 1st, and so any of you that can encourage residents to enter that would be wonderful. So we are at the question time, and Katie, actually I think I can handle this, so you don't even need to do anything. One of the questions, and I'm just going to open it up and let any of you, Mitzi, Greg, Betsy, Teresa, and crew, answer these. So do each of you have a person dedicated to managing your social media? If not, how much time does it take to manage the social media posts and sites? I'm just going to unmute y'all.
Hey, this is Greg.
Greg, hi.
Yeah, right now I'm doing all of the managing of it, and something that the volunteer coordinator, Marianne Schofield, who hopefully is listening and knows that some responsibility of that in the future, hopefully she'll be happy to take over. And it really, I kind of commit to it now very minimally, now that I've built up the accounts over the years, and at least make an effort to do a couple posts every week. When things are kind of quiet, which is not often enough, I'll do a little bit more interaction, especially with the Twitter and the Facebook accounts. Hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Mitzi or Teresa, Betsy?
So this is Mitzi, and I would say that we all share responsibility. There are three of us in the office, and we all share responsibility for the content that goes up on our Facebook page. And when we're lucky enough to have interns during the school year, they create a lot of content for us. So it's really a group effort here. And I'd say we post someplace between 3 and 5 times a week, sometimes more actively during the legislative session. So we also use what we call an editorial calendar so that we can figure out what issues and concerns that we want to make sure are on our calendar for the entire year. So we try to do some planning that way as well.
Okay, thank you.
This is Carrie and Catherine. We kind of do a joint effort on our Facebook page, just kind of as we see things. But I wanted to mention one thing that I found extremely useful. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with Google Alerts, and you can just Google Alerts, and it'll tell you how to do it. But I have several set up where they'll send me things every day that they found in the news or posts of some sort. So I have and put quotations, or you'll get, for example, long-term care ombudsman. If I don't put quotes around that, everything that was long or term or whatever will show up. But long-term care ombudsman, aging, elders, stuff like that, automatically I get all these, some funny things, a lot of, like we do Alzheimer's, dementia. I get local things for other ombudsman offices. I may get different, like I've seen a couple of volunteer recruitments and newspaper postings, but anyway, I find Google Alerts to be extremely helpful. That's how I get a lot of our Facebook content, and we generally try to post every day, but because I've already got that resource, I don't have to dig very far. It comes to me. And you can schedule those posts. I'm not sure, like, for example, if I find 3 good articles or whatever in a day because they all came to me on one day, I might schedule one a day for 3 days to post one today, pre-schedule it for so it'll automatically post the next day, and then another one to automatically post the next day. So I spend very little time looking, I spend very little time posting because I have these things automatically set up.
Okay, so it sounds kind of like there might be some front end time that has to be put in just to figure out what it is you're doing, and then once you kind of get it going, it doesn't take as much time. Well, thank you. So another question. Do you use social media to screen volunteers, or do you wait until you contact them to screen them?
This is Catherine in Alaska, and we do not use social media to screen volunteers. And I will admit, though, when they contact me through Facebook, I will look at their profile just to see if there's anything that jumps out at me that would give me an impression of the type of volunteer they might be. But no, that's left for us mostly over the telephone because of the distance. And then during the course of the training as well, we also, I don't think I've ever screened anybody out after they've started the training, but obviously the background checks and all the pre stuff that we do before we accept them in the class could certainly be used to screen them out at that point. But Facebook, no.
Okay, great. Another question, is there a report the Ombudsman completes after their visit? And I'm not sure who was talking right then.
That was me, Catherine in Alaska.
Okay.
Oh, no, not
me, or them up there.
Are you talking about the anonymous attendee?
Yes.
That posted? Okay, yeah, that was not. Yes, let me clarify for Catherine. That was not us.
Okay.
But yes, our volunteer ombudsmen always do a report following each and every visit to the facility they're assigned to.
Okay, great. And then are your classroom sessions 4 hours each, and when during the training process are they held? Beginning and end?
Sure. I'll answer that. This is Betsy in Florida. Our online training is anywhere between 8 to 10 hours approximately. And then at the local level, they'll have classroom training, which is 2 8-hour sessions at the local level. And then as far as field training, they have to go on 3 cases. And in Florida, we have assessment training, 3 assessments. So that can total anywhere between 36 to 40 hours in order to get certified. But it's broken down online, classroom, and field.
Okay.
How do you get people to commit that much time? That's a lot of time.
You know,
that's just kind of a side note. I don't know if that's necessary, but I don't know how that is a lot of time for a quote unquote volunteer. So
yeah.
we're a little, that's how I guess I need to figure out how to tailor our recruitment towards that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a lot of hours. I believe that some of those regulations are going to change, and you have to have a lot of hours, I believe.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting once the training standards come out on how much training has to be, classroom face-to-face, and maybe some of the questions will be, if I'm doing something where I can see you and you can see me, is that the same as a classroom if you're talking big distances between where the trainer is and where the volunteer is. Somebody asked about the NORC app, and you need to search for LTC Ombudsman Resource Center. LTC Ombudsman Resource Center. And then, okay, somebody was asking about how do you get on the email list. Tell you what, a couple of things. If you are a volunteer manager, I operate a listserv. This is Carol Scott. I operate a listserv that has about 130 long-term care ombudsmen across the country. If you will email me, I will add you to that list. And that list is open for anyone to ask questions about, you know, who's doing shadowing, who's setting up mentors, who has a form that's really good, you know, for capturing information on such and such a topic with a volunteer. So it's cscott@theconsumervoice.org. cscott@theconsumervoice.org. And the other thing is, if you go to the NORC website, which is just ltc.org, ltcombudsman.org, and click on the little map on how to find an ombudsman, go to your state and look and see, is your name listed on there? And if it's not there, you can contact Ombud, OMBUD Center, CENTER, at theconsumervoice.org, and ask Katie to include you on that page and get you on the list of ombudsmen when we send out information like the monthly NORC notes and the Outlook, which comes out every quarter. I think at this point we are, we don't know when the new training requirements will be issued. They will be coming from the Administration for Community Living, ACL. Louise Ryan is the ombudsman specialist there. So whenever the federal government gets done with whatever they're doing, they'll send out. We kind of expect them to come out sometime this year, but we're just not holding our breath, but we're feeling positive vibes that they'll be coming out fairly soon. I want to thank Betsy, Greg, Teresa, and staff, and especially Mitzi for the information that you all presented today. This is being recorded, and this and the PowerPoint will be on our website in a day or so. Please complete the survey when you log off of here. And again, thank you all for joining us, and thank you to the NORC staff for helping put this together. Thank you all. Have a good evening.